I went to a conference, and after I was talking, there was a guy who came. I think he was in his 20s. He said, "Are you on rapamycin?" And I think it looks like, you have to be on this, right? Because that's the magic pill. And so that's a message I don't want to give, right? I don't think there is a magic pill. I think there's I always see things as a system. What is your longevity ecosystem, right? Do you need this type of drugs? And if you didn't achieve the level 1 of the game, right, there's no way you can go to level 2, right? And that's how I feel about it, right? And so yes, there's a lot of different intervention, uh, but sometimes there are level 3, level 4 intervention.
David Liu, welcome to Levity.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here and talking with you guys.
You can start by maybe explaining to me what is a longevity doctor.
Um, Gosh, I wish I have a definition, but I think every doctor should be focused on longevity to keep people live, a longer and healthier life. So this is really I think this is really the true definition of what a doctor should be, right? And if you look at it, we have been trained to treat disease, save life, and you always consider the doctor as a lifesaver in a way, because he avoids, or he tries to avoid, the death linked to the disease. But I think in the future the doctor will be a life extender, where it will be just the solution to help you maintain your health and eventually improve the number of years you can live in a perfect condition, health, in a healthy condition, in a functional way, in integrating your environment. So I think today the definition is quite, uh, it's not really well defined. But to me, this is the true definition of what a doctor should be:
Yeah,
focused on the life expectancy and the quality of life of each individual on the planet.
and one could say that you are working on the intersection of traditional medicine and longevity science, right? And you're a pediatric cardiac surgeon by training, and now you're leading multiple initiatives. When I look at your resume, I have a hard time understanding how you make room for everything. But maybe we should go back even further. There's a story about your father and the city Cannes in France. Uh, should we start there?
We start where you want. Yeah, I think, look, that's kind of the beginning of my life. If my dad didn't flew from Lao to Cannes, I wouldn't be here talking to you guys. So yeah, this is really the inception. So my dad is a Chinese descent. He came to France, I think in the 60s, really early. Was, family of 9, the elders. And so he came and he went to high school, not speaking a word of French in Cannes. For those who don't know where it is, it's in the south of France. It's really cool. There's La Croisette, a lot of nice palm trees, the water, the sea, a lot of great Mediterranean food. But just picture, in the 60s, where, a Chinese immigrant comes to Cannes, which probably wasn't really that open in terms of diversity at that time, and had to learn a new language, being equipped with all the different cultural subtleties. I think it was probably really challenging. We didn't flew the same way we're flying today, right? So he came to the south of France, um, and then he decided to become a doctor, right? And how crazy it was, right? Deciding to become a doctor, as a young immigrant. And he was probably inspired by my grandfather, who was a pharmacist. My grandmother was a nurse as well in Laos, and so I think he really grew up seeing the impact of taking care of people's life and health, and wanted to do the same. So he started his medical school in the south of France, in Montpellier. Then became a doctor, and then later on he specialized in Chinese medicine and especially in acupuncture. And so, if you look at acupuncture in the 80s, especially in Europe, they were really seeing that as an alternative practice, right? No one could really understand what it was, um, how it could impact, in one's health, and especially what were the scientific, or physiology explanation basis behind it and evidence. So he decided to pursue a physiology pathway and partner with the Department of Anatomy to start, dissecting cadaver to understand uh, the um, the transfer of energy between certain organs by measuring the energy between nerves in cadaver, right? And so I think that was the beginning of his research. Obviously, he knew how to read and write Chinese, which was a big advantage because now you could translate all those manuscript and publication from Chinese to French. So he was in charge of educating, doing some research, educating the other doctors, and as well practicing acupuncture within a medical department, which was kind of a premiere in France. And so based on his success, he started teaching at the medical school and had more and more students flying over to spend time learning in his department with other doctors involved, and they made it a diploma, right, a certification, which now is mandatory to practice this type of medicine in France and probably in other country in Europe. So I think I that's what I'm saying. It's really the beginning of one journey, but that's a journey that really inspired me uh, as his son, and then as a young medical student, I was following him in those anatomy and dissection room. And then just picture like a 6 or 10 years old kid boy, in the middle of a dissection room, seeing limbs and open bodies. I think it was really natural for me. But on the other side, he met my mom in the ER when he was a ER doctor, and my mom was a pediatric nurse. So I always been um, I would say led by this impact or impactful mission of helping people. And then she specialized in protecting vulnerable children that were either displaced or in camp uh, in France. So I was always my hero was always like listening to the stories of those kids, not having access to healthcare or proper medication, and even at some point, I remember being pretty young, helping her carrying some clothes and food to bring that to the church and camp for those families. So look, I think you have the DNA, right, of your parents. That's something you don't really choose, right? And that's really cool. But then on the other side, you have the aspirational stories and experience that you see, that you witness. There is no, I was never told to become a doctor, right? But seeing what they were doing, the impact they had, I was, I knew that was the only thing I wanted to do. And so at 3 years old already, I knew I wanted to be a doctor.
At
And
three
like I
years
said,
old?
yeah, I knew that. And I think, look, I didn't see anything else, right? So I was just wearing my dad white coat and surgical mask, posing behind his huge desk at that time and writing prescription already. Um, so yeah, that's part of me. That's who I am. I'm nothing else than this. So it's interesting when you said when you look at the resume, you don't know um, how things are done. I think it's not a resume, right? A resume is stacking experience. I think it's just an evolution, right? Is I am a doctor. I wear probably different hat or different white coats. Sometimes, I wear a scrub as a surgeon. Sometimes you wear a white coat. Sometimes you just, wear a suit. Sometimes you wear a black T-shirt because you're an entrepreneur. And I think, if your mission is still the same, it doesn't matter the tool you use, right? And the tools are mostly the career you choose to achieve your end goal, your outcome. And I think that's the same for every doctor, right? The specialty they choose, they like, they're passionate about, they want to practice every day, is just another lever and tool to save or improve someone's life.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're going to spend a lot of time talking about your project Longevity Docs today, but maybe we could just take a moment to talk about some of your other tech, health tech platforms that you've founded. I'm thinking about Hearty and how do you pronounce this? JuiSci?
Yeah, that's a good pronunciation.
Yeah.
I never know, but actually, it's the compression of juice of science. JuiSci, juice of science. So it's an easy way to understand that so many publication every single day, from science to clinical work, um, and doctors are so busy just treating a patient all day. So how do you keep up to date, right? How do you make sure that you have the latest information, especially if you want to practice evidence-based medicine, right? You have to be aware of what is published, not every single day, but at least every quarter have an update. And so I started facing this problem when in 2020, Moana, my wife, had COVID really early on. And so I was basically on PubMed looking at every single information I could find. All right. But think about that. Remember where we were like March 2020? We didn't have any publication, right? Like
Yeah.
journal were closed in a way. So I think what was really interesting, we had a lot of preprint, right? And the preprint was just telling the story of cases and observation that we had on the disease. And so I was doing kind of my own summary, and I was sharing that with friends using WhatsApp group. In Europe, we love that WhatsApp communication. Um, and so I was doing those summaries, and I was as well tweeting them. So I realized, wow, if I do that and then people like it, it means that there is really a need to summarize you know scientific publication. And again, I'm thinking like a doctor. It's what I'm passionate about. You read all day, but sometimes publication are really long. You don't know which one are good or not, what which journal you should follow, the impact factor, the methodology of the paper. So before ChatGPT was sexy, we created our own LLM. And the idea is to say, if we can summarize really fast a publication, then we can read, most of them in a day. And now, basically, understanding what the publication is about takes 1 minute. So you can download the app, juicy.com. It's totally free. And in few years, we basically served 200,000 healthcare providers across the world. And the idea is to support not only the doctors, but every single provider, whether they are in health system, in the industry, in medical association, just to digest scientific publication faster, better, and be able to implement it in a daily life, either in the science or either in the clinical field.
Can I ask you something? Do you do that, so to speak, by hand, or do you use AI now to do this?
Yeah, we always used AI. The promise of it was to do it without human involved entirely. Obviously, when we do it, we have an advisory committee led by medical doctors looking at it and verifying all the different summaries. I think it's really important, especially at the beginning of artificial intelligence. You want to make sure there's not too many hallucination. But we have to train the model in a really humble way. We believe that um, there is a future where all those publications will be transcribed 100%, and then even find some publication or misleading, right, where the method is not really good or can be improved. And I think that's going to be where AI is going to solve a lot of time consuming human driven task. And so as doctor, we're going to have more time focusing on the human relationship. So that's juicy.
And how does a pediatric cardiac surgeon know about large language models? Because there was this gap between the Transformers paper in 2017 and then ChatGPT being released in 5 years later. And there was only AI folk who knew about this revolution. So can you explain how you knew about it and how you went about to build your own LLM for this?
Yeah, so I think I love to say, yeah, that was, it was in me, and then it was so easy to learn about it. So not actually the case. Um, but I always found that what was really interesting as a surgeon is I always knew you couldn't perform the surgery by yourself. You have to be leading, a team, and you have an anesthesiologist, a cardiologist, nurses, etc. It's a team of people. And so the same way I'm operating in the operating room, I'm operating in the startup field, where you have to have a vision, but you have to have expert around you. And so I didn't know about AI in a way, how to build an LLM, obviously. But what I knew is that just let me make the link between the cardiac surgery. In 2014, I realized that um, we could detect disease earlier, especially congenital heart disease, due to infection. So we were screening a lot of kids in Africa for rheumatic heart disease. Those diseases are almost 100% preventable, right? When you have an infection, it gets into your valve, it calcifies the valve, and it impacts the heart. If you take an antibiotics, you can just treat and prevent those infection and those complications. But in order to do that, sometimes you have to assess the heart structure, and so we use portable echograph, sonographer, in mobile clinic in Africa in the villages. And the first time I heard about AI was probably 2014, 2015, where a company called Butterfly. I don't know if you heard of Butterfly. It's a portable sonographer that you can plug to your phone, right? The probe is like the size of a remote control, and then you can just plug it right with a USB to your phone. And so I remember when we're talking to Jonathan Rodbeck, the founder, say we could use artificial intelligence at some point to detect malformation in the heart. So it was, back in the days, 2014. So I think that was when we started to realize that in order to create this type of intelligence, you need to gather a lot of information, right? Data point, because you learn only from data. So I think that was the beginning of uh, myself as a cardiac surgeon, understanding that at some point the data will be used to create some algorithm, basically that can work, in an autonomous way to make decision. So that was the beginning.
And what is Hearty?
Hearty is a longevity medicine platform. It's a technology company that we started to build in 21. When COVID hit, a lot of people were worried about the health and they wanted to prevent the infection. And so obviously, close friends were coming to me as a physician, to my partner, Dr. Frank Lipman, and they were asking, what should we do? Right. And obviously, I mean, we had some answer, but we don't have all the answer. Um, but I think in order to not only prevent this infection, we wanted to prevent other type of diseases, right? Understanding the root cause of uh, the chronic diseases, and especially the root cause of premature aging. And so that was already really the focus of Hardy. How can we prevent age-related diseases such as cardiovascular disease? So that's how we started as a virtual first clinic to treat people and to maintain them in the healthiest state as possible. But what happened is we got a lot of different doctors coming to us and say, "Can we partner with you? Can we, work with your technology and maybe license the software?" And then it was never built for this, right? So we built basically a dashboard that collect all different type of data, and data coming from wearables, data coming from lab work, from imaging on one platform. And that was probably one of the first fully integrated platform leveraging the power of data. And so those doctors saying, can I use that for my practice? I'd say, yeah, you know what, we're using for hours. I didn't want to create a competition in a way. And so I really decided at some point that uh, empowering the doctor was one of the most important things if we wanted to look at scale, right? It's great to work with 1, 2, even 10 doctors, but imagine having 1,000 doctors that can be empowered with one platform, and at some point, understanding what's going on with the biomarker and pulling information from this huge amount of data, and creating some artificial intelligence that can basically make better decision, offer more personalized testing and more personalized intervention in the longevity space. So Hearty right now, it's a software, it's a platform that offers several type of services, and that with the mission to empower other doctors to create their own practice in a really simple way. You don't have to have a really heavy EMR or another payment platform integrating a lot of different APIs for your wearables if you can do it with one single plug and play platform. And so that's the promise. At some point, you can almost create a decentralized health system with technology.
Maybe you could say something about the Heart Fund as well.
Yeah, on the philanthropic side, I started my foundation when I was 21. So it's now 25 years ago. It's been probably more than half of my life uh, thinking and being dedicated to improving young kids' health and their immediate family. I think what is really important is you have to build things that are really aligned with your personal mission, right? And so I started as a humanitarian before I was even a surgeon, before I became a cardiac surgeon, before I became an entrepreneur. So I think this is really, and now I see that I connect the dots. Kind of looking backward, I understand why I did that. I think that was the fastest way to execution, right? I didn't want. I remember one day I called, a large non-profit organization, a large NGO, and I said, "Look, I'm a medical student, second year. I want to volunteer. Where should I come to help? I want to go in this country." It's like, oh, wait a second. Why don't you just finish your medical school? You become a doctor, and then you come back. That's where you're gonna have the most value. I say, wow, another 6 years, let me build it. And that's where I think from frustration I started to create an organization that was basically delivering surgery in developing countries. So we started in Cambodia, in Burkina Faso, in Africa. We're working with a lot of different pediatric surgeons, bringing the surgeon to those places where they could perform free surgery. And so I was always organizing small fundraising to be able to sustain those missions. But I always had amazing amazing partner and co-founders in those journey, especially people that were trusting me at the time. Doctors were already professors, and they said, why should I follow this young 20 years old kids on the other side of the world to operate for free? But I think is when you're 100% convinced and committed to your mission, you don't see the challenges and the barrier, right? You just go for what is the outcome, and the outcome was operating kids, right? We have no other agenda. We didn't have business plan. We don't have any strategy. It's like, we need to operate those kids. How much does it cost? What do we need? If we need to buy some surgical tools, let's go and get them, right? If we need to finance the transportation for the family to come to the hospital, let's rent motorcycles to bring them on the back of the motorcycle. So I was really, really, I think, the beginning of this kind of entrepreneurial mindset, being agile and frugal in a way, just finding solution.
And it seems like everything you do fits together very well, because then you have the platforms with the education so that the knowledge can be everywhere.
Correct. That's the, like I said, sometimes you connect the dots backward and you say, oh wow, okay, now it makes perfect sense. But sometimes when you do it, you don't even think about it. You do things because you think they're right, and then you think that's going to work, and then you're passionate about it, right? And so I always love to say you have to keep your mind young, right?
Yeah,
Because as soon as we get older, we create some barrier, right?
yeah,
We create more fears, anxiety. We try to strategize, etc. But I mean, if you go with your gut, sometimes it's faster, it's more powerful, and you get things done right away.
yeah. I mean, it's something to be mindful about. Definitely, not to get stuck in patterns and assumptions about what's possible and things like that. Um, it's like I have friends who are in their 50s, and they're kind of stuck listening to the same music as when we were 18. And yeah.
Patrick, what kind of music is that, and what music do you listen to?
Well, okay, so either they're going to listen to hard rock like Whitesnake and Dio, and Guns N' Roses if you're lucky, and then it kind of just ends. Like then all the influences ends, or maybe it's Depeche Mode and things like that, more of the Kraftwerk and those kind of things. But then it's like less and less and less from like year 2000, less and less and less. And I said, we all love these songs, but let's put out something new. Right? You got to force yourself to listen to something you're not used to, right? Okay, you can't just listen to your favorite albums over and over again. And what about you?
Yeah, it's a mix. Or did you ask David?
Well, Pink Floyd. We all
It's a
listen to
mix of
Pink
all
Floyd,
them.
of course. We love Pink Floyd. David, what about you?
No, I think you're right. Look, the brain plasticity, right, is really important, right? And look, I think if you listen to one type of music all over and over again, you're gonna start even loving it, right? Or being, annoyed by it. So I think the diversity, being open to new type of music, I love dancehall music. I love French rap. I love as well Metallica, Gun N' Roses, and The Doors. But as well all the new pop music, and obviously all the traditional US hip hop. Even the new one. So electro music, house music. I'm not attached to one type of music. I think it's about every single track as an emotion, right? Even one artist can can drop a lot of different albums, and then you connect with one, or even one song within the album. So I think it's all about it's like, I think it's like everything in life, right? You just connect through emotion, and probably less technical. So I like every type of music that produce a type of emotion that I need at that time. And so I wouldn't probably listen to hard rock music when I want to go to bed or meditate, right? But
So, when did you realize, David, that you were interested in longevity and started to think about that more concretely?
I think it was about probably 2018, right? When I learned about the work of, the Yamanaka factors and sirtuin, and got, really interested because I didn't know anything about it. It's like, what is this kind of science that I never heard about in med school or in my research. And so, I started digging, I started to really understand, you know, what was the whole philosophy behind it, understanding, the change at the cellular, at the molecular level. Um, and from there, I really tried to understand what type of innovation could come out from it, right? And so obviously from the biotech side, but as well from the diagnostic side, um, we always interested in understanding how fast or how early can we track or detect a disease. And so we have biomarker of disease, right? And so they are really established. We understand which one are they. And then that's it, right? Once they validated, they don't change. So you take a lipid panel for cardiovascular disease, and it hasn't changed for decades. And so I started to really look at omics, multi-omics, understanding what are the relationship between the genome, the transcriptome, the metabolome, the proteome, and what type of biomarker can we use to track and to predict cardiovascular disease. So I digged a lot into it to build a company around that, and that's probably what led me to build Hearty in a way. So yeah, that was pretty early. Uh, when I say early, 2017, 2018.
Can we just spend a minute could you explain a little bit about what multi-omics is and why it's so discussed these days?
Yeah, so I just to make it probably simple is when you look at the biomarker, it's a consequence of a system a transformation in our body, right? And this transformation is coming from different transcription or cascade of event. And most of the time, we look at one or two biomarkers, right? Um, Now, what is really interesting is there's a lot of different markers that we cannot detect or we don't measure, but are really interesting to understand uh, more precisely and hopefully at some point more accurately, um, the with more precision, basically the transformation cascade right within the body. And so if we measure those, maybe there is a way that we can not only being more precise in terms of the intervention we could use to treat them, or at some point we can detect those marker earlier than the one that we measure today, right? And so I think the more information we have around, let's say, a disease, and then you use all the you know the omics that I just mentioned, including even digital metrics, and then you combine all of them together, you have a clearer picture, right? And a more detailed picture overview of I think the story of the disease. So let's say um, you take you take a screen, right? And we focus only on one dot, right? That's one biomarker, but the screen is made of millions or billions of pixels. And so those are the multiomics. And most of the time we zoom in so intensely, right? That we only measure a few of those markers. But there's plenty of them. The problem is there's too many of them, right? And because of that, you don't know which one to look at for after, right? Which one we should monitor. And it's really hard to measure all of them, at the same time in a continuous way. So that's why it's interesting to pick some of them. But what I think it's going to be really interesting, especially with the power of health tech, med tech, right? AI, CPUs. I think analyzing and storing those data is cheaper and faster than ever. So, even compared to 7 years ago, what was probably, few dozen of thousands of dollars right now is few hundred, dollars, right? And so I think that's what I always say, how do we make things more accessible? How do we democratize things? Technology is going to be a big lever because the things that were almost impossible to bring to the population now is going to become easier, faster, and cheaper. Therefore, if they provide value and they are actionable, right, which means for doctors or for patient, they can link to an intervention that have proven outcome, and then we can measure rapidly. Um, that's amazing because now we can monitor basically the disease, because we can basically see the disease before the biomarker, you know, just shows, right? So you have all those pathways, and it's basically I think an amazing way to understand the whole picture, zooming out and looking at all the different drawing of the biological system. So that's kind of my philosophical way to understand it.
And talking about democratizing health and artificial intelligence, there's been quite a lot of anecdotes about people consulting chatbots like ChatGPT, for example, with their medical conditions. So they claim they've maybe they've been to the ER and the doctor said to them, it shouldn't be a problem. You can probably go home. The symptoms have been getting worse. They've consulted the chatbot, and the chatbot has come up with a diagnosis, and they go back to the doctor, and it turns out that they're correct. The chatbot has been correct. So that's one that's just anecdotal. But then there's also quite a few studies looking at this, and especially if you look at the more recent versions of the chatbots. There was one study, for example, where they used these, you're probably familiar with them, David, but they use these cases that are not public, that's often used in medical training, if I understand it correctly, where you're going to do a differential diagnosis. And so in this study, they had 3 cohorts, if you will, with only chatbot, and then there was human doctor and chatbot. They could use the chatbot to consult it, and only doctors. And so the chatbot did best by itself because, and I don't know if that has been proved, but I think one idea there was that doctors were biased in that way, that they didn't really take the chatbot's advice. What do you think about this type of patient seeking their own care in this way? Do you think we're going to see more
I
of
think,
this?
look, you cannot fight the evolution. I think, and that's that's how it is right now. So it's not what I think; it is what it is, right? And so I think people are curious right now. They are smarter. They have faster, cheaper access to information, and they have the freedom to do it. And so, in places where this information is available, they're gonna go and they're gonna try to access it, and so they're going to find information on, before it was a newspaper, right? Last time I I was traveling with my son, he said, what is going on? I see a guy with a newspaper sitting at a cafe. And so think about it, it's 10. And so for him, reading a newspaper is doesn't exist anymore. Right. And so you have fastest access to information. I think you don't even Google anymore. You chat GPT things, right? Because now you have access to a larger database that can be where you have a triage, you have kind of an assistant looking at it. So I think in the future, right, hopefully we're going to have a different way to practice medicine, right? Where the communication and the relationship between the doctor and the patient will be more as a trusted advisor, right? A trusted person that can guide you to access the most advanced, cutting edge, technology and solution, while AI will do 99% of the work, which is, doing the triage, doing all the administrative tasks, maybe the insurance claim, looking at all the different biomarker, flagging, a spike in one of your biomarker in millisecond. So with all those data, we are creating. Well, I say we, it's like, the humanity right now is creating basically the largest database of of health uh, of health information. And if some AI are getting built on top of it, it is probably more powerful than any individual doctor, and even a small group of doctors. Now, having said that, I think we have to look at the different challenges and concern, right? The safety, the efficacy of it, the regulation, the bias, right? The ethical concern, and um, I'm thinking already about where those data are coming from, the diversity of data, right? And are we treating a a person in Africa in a different way that we are treating a person in the US, right?
This episode of Levity is brought to you by Vitalism Foundation.
Vitalism Foundation is a non-profit with a revolutionary mission to achieve unlimited lifespans in peak health.
You should really join us. Follow the link in the description below.
Well, so the hope is that medicine will see the same development as, for example, information technology like cell phones, where you get more for your dollar.
Yeah,
because
totally.
because we haven't really seen that. It hasn't translated so well into healthcare and health outcomes. When you look at, we have had a lot of technological development and also in the science of medicine, but we haven't had the results we want and results per dollar, so to speak, either.
Yeah, I don't agree 100%. I think, yeah, maybe you are, we are expecting more, but I think if you look at where we were 50 years ago
Mm.
and when we are today,
Oh yeah.
there's tremendous, impact, and most of it is linked to innovation and is it internet technology? I don't know, but you know, probably, it's part of it. So I guess in the future we'll be amazed to see that maybe we won't see any chronic disease anymore because we have so many powerful tools to detect them and so many powerful tools to treat them that they kind of will probably disappear the same way infectious diseases are disappearing because now we can detect them faster and then we can treat them cheaper, right, with different tools, antibiotics, vaccination, whatever it is. So uh, I think at some point we'll be able to detect disease faster in a more precise way, and we're gonna have technology to treat them, fight them, um, even faster and even cheaper. And that's only gonna be, you know, due to the digital technology and the advancement into the power of the computer and the AI that can support the vision of scientists or doctors.
I was thinking about the discussion in the US now, where they basically say that if you look at young people in the 1990 compared to today, they were in better health, for example. There were less chronic diseases among young people.
Yeah, that's a big topic, man.
Yeah.
I
So
agree. I agree. I think one of the most you know the most impactful thing that I see right now is mental health.
yeah.
For the younger generation, the suicide rate for young women and girls is sky high. And so I think is what are we doing wrong in the society to to lead that type of crisis. I think that's number one. I think number two is really uh, the metabolic crisis, the type of food uh, we're ingesting, and why it's killing slowly, the population. And it's not only the youth. It starts during the youth, right, and then evolves and start to translate into diseases that appear faster, earlier, and we're talking about cardiac disease, cancer, diabetes, early cognitive decline, um, and that's a big issue, I think. And so you're right. I think it should be addressed as a global crisis, and global health right now could focus on the U.S. probably as much as they're focusing on the rest of the world.
I think that is what I meant when I said we've had a lot of progress on the technical side, the technological side, the information side, and so on. But if you just look at the outcome in terms of public health, it's not quite where we want it to be.
Yeah, especially in America, right?
Yeah.
If you look at different, other countries, I think it follows a similar trend, technology evolution and then life expectancy, uh, which is, it's a big difference, life expectancy and lifespan, individual lifespan and population life expectancy. So I think the lifespan will increase faster, right, than life expectancy for sure. But hopefully the curve will catch up at some point. and that's where, like, this ratio will increase, in the next few years, I think. I mean, this differential between the two curves. um, so that's the goal, probably at some point, to narrow this, the space between those two curves. And that's where we probably, call it, democratization of medicine or health.
Yeah, I guess, did we, because I started to ask you, David, about your journey into longevity, but did we discuss how longevity docs came about?
So longevity docs is a funny story. I went to A4M, I think it was probably a year ago, a year or two ago, 2 years ago, yeah. And then and I started to uh, you know, have you been to A4M? Let me put in context. So A4M is a large, amazing conference where a lot of leaders in the space uh, of functional medicine, regenerative medicine, and longevity medicine are gathering in Las Vegas. So it is interesting because you're in the middle of, casino and people drinking and smoking, and then you're going to this healthcare conference where you have thousands and thousands of people in this luxury hotel. And so I was there in the middle, and then you have a lot of different conversation and forums and discussion and vendors and sponsors and stand. It's like, wow, I love to learn more about everything, but I'm lost, right? So I tried to find some doctors that were already part of this journey and this conference to guide me. And so I organized a small dinner, and brought some friends around the table. And basically that was kind of the beginning of a small WhatsApp group between us, and keeping us updated of what we were doing, following each other to different type of conference, etc., etc. And then what happened in the year after, I started a group, and I emailed few doctors that I had, you know uh, either as a friend or as mentor, and say, would you like to join this cool club in town that I'm creating? It's going to be it's going to be totally digital, and we're going to bring the best doctors to talk about longevity. And so this is how it started. It was really a conversation around the topic of longevity, trying to understand it better and to share our experience, right? What we were seeing, the commenting the research, understanding, the testing, the solution, the medicine. And so what I realized, when I initiated this group, is a lot of doctors were excited about this future, where we would have a medicine that would be, driven by the data, that would be preventative, looking at the disease before it appears, um, using solution that would be forward thinking, targeting different pathways and biological mechanism, and looking in a precise way what works for one person, not just for a large trial. And so I started to realize probably a year and a half ago that most doctors wanted to have this type of medicine, right? Even though you're a specialist in your large hospital and health system, the promise of having a medicine that would be, a superpower medicine, right, was really appealing. Yet it was only a few people that would basically jump into practicing it, because it was, high risk, it was unknown, it was complex, um, and all of a sudden you transition from being, let's say, an expert, you're a cardiac surgeon, you focus on the heart, and then you know the heart by heart, right? And so now all of a sudden you have to learn about hormones, about brain health, about all different type of biomarkers, the gut technology. And so you start a new type of fellowship, a new type of medical school again. And that's the type of feeling that I got. I was like, wow, it's a new journey, right? It's not, like, it's not another line on the resume. It's totally a new journey. It's an evolution of who I am as a physician, right? As a specialist. How do I now understand the body as a whole, and not only the body but the environment of an individual, so I can have a better impact on on their life, not on their health, but on their life, which was really powerful to me. So talking with several of the doctors, I'd say, wow, this is what is missing. Everyone is craving to get back together. It's just a little bit post COVID. How can we connect more, learn from each other, share experience? So that's how we started. Probably 10 people on this WhatsApp group to now close to 300 across 40 countries. And so I believe that's one of the fastest growing community in the longevity medicine space. Um, we are totally dedicated to doctors, because I think the idea of building kind of this new virtual platform for medical education is really interesting, And so if we can help doctors again being empowered with the new tool, the new and new technology to practice better and to improve their outcome and not only save life, like I said, but extend life as well. Look, that's an amazing mission. That's a passion. So that's how it started. Right now, longevity doc, I call it the home of longevity medicine, right? Because if you want to find the people like you, um, this is where you can go if you want to learn about the latest on the topic of longevity. This is where you go. And again, we don't issue guideline. We're not here to create a consensus, but we're here to discuss it. And look, the debate are really sometimes heated, right? You have people who are pro a solution, and the other one are challenging it. And I think that's really healthy, right? Um, I think there's no fight. There is always a constructive conversation. But what I think was really interesting is the more I discuss with those amazing physicians, is we need more data, right? We need more evidence, and we just don't want to wait for the evidence. We have to create it, our own evidence. And when I say create it, we have to lead the research if we want to, and again, I'm taking my dad as an example, right? Saying, hey, acupuncture doesn't work. Okay, let's go to the lab, let's dissect cadavers and show there is really something happening into the body. And so now I think we could do that with the new tools. Like, you want to show that the molecule works and can, impact the mechanism of aging. How do you do that? It's amazing to do it in worms, um, and small animals, but when you have those evidence, in a preclinical setting, how do you make it happen in a clinical work? And so I think is bringing those doctors together as kind of the guardian of the safety and efficacy and the good evidence to just practice good medicine that eventually lead to longevity. So that's the whole purpose of longevity docs.
And this is not only a WhatsApp group anymore. I mean, you do a newsletter that I find really interesting, and I really love the gossip section of your newsletter, where I can where I can get some insight into how physicians think and discuss topics that are discussed among longevity enthusiasts as well. So we'll link to that in our show notes, of course. But then we can also circle back to Cannes, of course, where we started, because you do something in Cannes with longevity docs. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, look, I think I'm glad that you like the buzz in the chat in the newsletter. That's my favorite one to write. So I just give you a little bit of backstage, right? Is this group is chatting, every single day. We have an average of 200 messages a week, and so and like busy doctors, right? And so the type of messages and the depth and the granularity of this content is just amazing. So it is just hard to translate what's really happening into the group. And so I tried to do kind of a snapshot of what we witnessed during the week, to share and then to be able to bring more information to the public. So buzz in the chat is literally a conversation on one topic that is a heating debate or a hot topic during the week. And sometimes it's hard to pick. There could be several. So the newsletter was always a way to just resume or summarize the conversation and all our action. But then people said, "Wow, look, the group is amazing. The newsletter is really cool, but we want to meet again, right? We want to know each other in person. We want to collaborate, maybe partner, share, protocols and research together. And so we started to do a masterclass, a mastermind in New York. 150 doctors coming together one day with 30 speakers, on stage, sharing their knowledge, about latest technology, latest protocol, latest, medicine, or even, latest way of thinking, mindset, right? And so it was really aspirational to see all those doctors wanting to learn more, so hungry and curious about the future of this probably new way of practicing medicine, that we did another one in November. But then all of a sudden everyone said, and we need to globalize it. You need to bring people from saying, I mean, we had people coming from Japan, Singapore, Australia, Sweden, Europe. So I was really on board and thankful for all those people traveling. But then I realized that that couldn't be only happening in New York. We need to bring that. We needed to bring it to a different place. And so um, Cannes was really something special to me because I started. Uh, so the story of my dad in Cannes, but I started to do some humanitarian work in Cannes. And you say, wow, how do you do humanitarian work in Cannes? That doesn't, it doesn't align. But the story is, most of the surgical mission that we did with the Heart Fund, where the consequence, or thanks to uh, the donation and the gala we were doing in Cannes during the Cannes Film Festival. And so I always had, for many years, decades, this really close relationship with Cannes. Cannes is really in my heart for many reasons, but I think as well is a place of longevity. A lot of people were traveling to Cannes in the south of France, just to spend time and retire and live longer, and probably healthier, due to the Mediterranean lifestyle and diet. And so with the Cannes city, we decided that if we were doing an event in Europe for longevity, we wanted to be in Cannes, and so recreating the longevity, the festival for longevity, and awards for longevity, celebrating longevity medicine and longevity science. And I think at some point you always need to have um, a great group of people. It doesn't matter where they are, right? And you have to have always the same mission, right? And our mission is doesn't change. Is how can we extend healthy lifespan for everyone. So if we can do that, right, at the humanity level, um, if we want to do that, we need to bring more people around the table, right? The doctors are essential, but we need to bring other providers, right? We need to bring a health system, academia, policymaker, you know, investors, people from the government, from the nonprofit sector, the scientists, obviously, the advocate, the media, and I think the patient as well. I think it is now time that we have a place where those conversation can happen, and conversation lead to action, right? And action lead to impact. And so I envision this the longevity docs can as a place for a really hard discussion that we need to have, right, with different stakeholders around the table. I don't want that to be another echo chamber. Many conferences are popping everywhere around longevity, but can we get a place where we have serious discussion with an impact? So that's why we have this forum. But second, I wanted to celebrate as well all the wins and the steps, and I think it's important. A lot of people are working in the background, doing a lot of work, in the labs, in the clinics, in hospital, right? Building innovation. So we want to celebrate them, right? We want to bring them in on the front stage, and for that moment, I think the red carpet is not for celebrities or movie stars anymore. You know, those people fighting for the health of humanity should become the rock stars, the new rock stars, the new movie stars, and that's how I can serve better. I think, you know, empowering the one who are doing the work next to all of us, and giving a platform, a way to elevate everyone. So, you know, we could elevate not only the discussion but the impact at the humanity level.
I was thinking, how have you seen this movement grow, measuring by the platform Longevity Docs? And what is it that characterizes the mindset of those who see themselves as practicing longevity medicine?
Collaboration, innovation. I think those are, you know, and then I think, you know, leadership. A lot of people, hey, you know, that's interesting. I got this question, I think, yesterday, and someone said, do you think you see more surgeon or ER doctors becoming you know, or interested in longevity medicine, etc., etc.? I said, I don't think it is linked to the specialty. I think it's a mindset. I think it's just linked to who you are as an individual, right? Do you want to think forward? Do you want to take risk? Are you afraid of the unknown? Do you want to change the things? Do you want to fight the status quo? And I think those are the traits of character that define the longevity docs, the way I see them right now in our group, in our community. And funny enough, I didn't have the answer of the question, because maybe we have the information, we have the data, but I didn't track it on purpose, probably, you know. As it doesn't matter if you're an endocrinologist, a pediatrician, or a surgeon. What really matters is the energy that you put into making this new medicine the new standard. And so, you know, your question is you know, is interesting. I think the mindset, there is a change of mindset. People are frustrated, disillusioned, and sad to see, you know, the state of health compared to the, you know, the power of the innovation, the economic power that we have. We shouldn't have all those disease. We shouldn't die from preventable disease. When you see close to you people dying from something you could have prevented, I mean, you know, there's sadness, there is anger, there's frustration. So can we build a new ecosystem, right? And I think it's brick by brick, but you have to have robust foundation. It's just not one guy who just gonna come and comment about, you know, the future is gonna make things happen. The system has to be really robust to last, right? And so the same way you're building, you know, a healthcare system, if you're building an ecosystem focused on longevity, you need to have, you know, around the operating room, right? You need to have the right, you know, the right actors and stakeholders. So
I was thinking, in medical schools around the world, is there awareness of this concept of longevity medicine?
I think they're starting to learn about it, and the beauty of it is, you know, when you have a phone, you have access to all those different information wherever you are in the world. I think there is nothing stops you to understand. I get demand from, you know, medical student coming from different part of the world, right? And those young doctors right now sometimes are just fresh of medical school. Sometimes they're just starting the practice. Say, I heard about that. I am intrigued, but at the same time, I'm super excited. I think this is the future. Why we shouldn't do this type of medicine, all of us. And so I think at some point, longevity medicine probably is going to be another layer that you add to your specialty. Maybe it will become a specialty. I don't know. And I don't think that's really a discussion. I think the discussion is, can you add another training that you can put on, you know, over your endocrinology, you know, training, or your cardiology training, or your, you know, surgical training? Because I think that's going to make super doctors in a way, you know, being able to treat the disease whenever you need it, right? Life saving, but being able to prevent it, you know, and lifespan extending, or extension is going to be a tremendous, you know, skills to have. So yes, to answer your question, younger and younger generation from different part of the world. We have, you know, doctors from India, Southeast Asia, Japan, Africa, Middle East. So obviously Europe, Latin America, everywhere. So that's where I'm involved. I'm like, wow, this is not only for the super rich in America. Yes, he has to start somewhere. Remember, the iPhone was only for the folks in the Silicon Valley. Now a smartphone is everywhere. You don't have to have an iPhone. You can have a smartphone with 5G, right? So I think that's the leapfrog. I think the type of medicine that could be practiced in the villages that we were that was screening children, at some point we'll be able to bring the same test for cheaper, and it's going to be generic Oura ring, generic lipoprotein A, and you'll be able to do that faster, cheaper, and leapfrogging the medicine the same way technology leapfrog in those emerging nations.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a way of saving money if that's what you want to do, is to be proactive with your health.
Yeah, I think at the governmental level, yeah, you can look at all the year that you lose, right? The healthy years, the productivity level, right? You know, I think a powerful nation should be a nation that is healthy, right? When you look at, let's say, Korea, and how they are trying to maintain the police force, I think it's really impressive, right? So a healthy nation is a nation that's going to produce more, that's going to be aspirational for the future, that's going to be able to create solution at every level, right? At the technology level, at the governmental level, at the climate level, at the inclusion level. I think it is important to understand that you can only think forward if you have your health, right? And if you are driven by something that is, I think, bigger than you, right? And so you only be able to do that when you are, I think, when you are healthy, mentally or physically. And I give you an example, as and that's probably where I shifted my mindset. I had a skateboard accident, probably because I thought I was 14 and I could go skateboarding like this. So I was with my son skateboarding. I felt and I broke my clavicle. I went to the OR. They said, "Look, you need surgery. We're going to do all your blood work." And I look at my cholesterol was a little bit elevated, right? Like higher limit. And so I decided to dig a little bit deeper. I found out I have, a highly protein little A, which is more, genetic than it is lifestyle. But then I said, wow, if I improve my lifestyle, maybe I can reduce the risk. So without getting into the detail, now the mindset is changing, right? Is how do I address not only myself, right? How do I make sure I stay healthier longer? Because that's in my personal interest. But how do I make sure my wife, my kid, my first circle now is staying healthier longer as well? And if you think this way, you think about society, right? Because you have a first circle, a second, and then maybe another other layers, and so it's like an onion, right? And so I believe that everyone who focus on his own health will have an impact on the first circle, which will have another impact on the second circle, right? And so now you're starting to have a flying wheel and a network effect where every single healthy individual will inspire the other people around them, right? And now you create a healthy ecosystem for society. But you need to have leaders within the family, leaders within your community, leaders within your neighborhood, leaders within your city, leader within your county, right? And your region to make that happen. But it starts with one guy, one person, right? And so that's the belief where the evolution of one individual can lead to the evolution of one society because of the vision, the values, the first principle. Let's try to just live healthy and the health, our healthier life. And if we can do that by fighting the enemy, right, which are everywhere, right, our phone, the food, the drugs and cigarette and alcohol, all of that is exposed to us on a daily basis. We have to build education, resilience, and response mechanism and reflex not to be trapped, right? And so if we do that, if we educate earlier than ever the younger population um, with ambassadors, and ambassadors could be, you know, someone within the family or a neighbor or a good friend or a doctor or a coach, um, then we have an impact at the society level. And I think Singapore is trying to do that. Healthy Singapore. There is an initiative really trying to bring longevity into the political map. So pretty inspired. I'm gonna have a discussion there. I'm invited to speak at a conference there in a few months. So I'm excited to learn about their approach.
That's a modern blue zone, I think.
Yep.
David, you mentioned lipoprotein little a here now. That was actually something that I got interested in during your talk at ARDD, the conference in Copenhagen earlier this year. This lipoprotein is extremely important, and yours was elevated, right? And so maybe you could just say a little bit about why it's important. And then I'd like to ask you why this is not routinely screened. And is this something that you feel like this is part of the longevity doctor mission, that low hanging fruit should be exhibit A of what's wrong with what medicine today?
Look, I think it's a really important question. Um, so basically, lipoproteinyl A is something that is, the elevation of it is, to our knowledge right now, mostly genetic. And so in order to fight it, you have to either extract it, right, from your body, or either you have to reduce, the impact of it. And so if you really want to simplify things, is the risk that this elevated lipoprotein can have in your body is to create a plaque in your artery of the heart and then create a heart attack in the future. Um, Most of it is when you have inflammation in your body, right? So the increase of this, lipoprotein and then lipid together with inflammation creates a plaque that is soft at the beginning, right? It's like a sludge, right, in your artery, and then sometimes it gets calcified. And when it calcifies too much, it stop the blood flow into your heart, and then you have a heart attack, right? And so that can happen either in your heart or either you know any other vessel, and maybe in your brain. It could
And,
be other
and I
vessels.
think people fail to realize that this is an independent risk factor for heart disease.
Yeah.
That's one
So
thing. And the other thing is that it's not uncommon that you get a heart attack at a young age if you have elevated LP little a. Right?
exactly. And so we believe that most of the time having a standard lipid panel um, will tell you exactly about the composition of your lipid. And so it is not true, right? Having just a LDL, triglyceride, and HDL is not enough. You have to go and get deeper, having a apoprotein B, ApoB, lipoproteinyl A, and even oxidized type of lipid. I think it's really important to understand that. And again, I encourage everyone to ask their cardiologist about it, right, and their doctor, and say, I heard about ApoB, lipoproteinyl A, oxidized LDL, and I want to know more about it. I want to know if that impacts my risk of heart disease or not. And that's really important to understand that now we have tools to measure a little bit more precisely those type of markers. Now, why is it important? Is first of all, because when you have this type of elevation, lipoproteinol A, for instance, there's no direct treatment today. So you have to reduce all the other risk factor. You have to be even more proactive than anyone else, right? Even though you have low risk today, it doesn't mean that you won't increase it tomorrow, right? So there is a lot of tools that you could use. A calcium score, powered by AI. It's called Clearly, can analyze your soft plaque. You can use different type of medicine that are a little bit more aggressive than the typical statin, and work sometimes on this the reduction of lipoproteinuric A. So I don't like to get into details of treatment, but I think into the awareness of there's a lot of different tools right now to detect some biomarkers that are, really common, really cheap. I think lipoproteinuric A costs between $5 to $20, so everyone kind of can afford it. You have to do it one time, and that's enough. So even if you have a young kid at 10 or 12 years old, I encourage people who have high lipoproteinuric A to do it for your kids, right? Because that's as soon as then you can implement a lifestyle that's going to protect your children to increase their risk. And so I think you can only improve what you know, right? And now we have access to a lot of uh, different type of data. But you were asking me why is not common. I think a lot of guidelines just recommend things, and those guidelines have been created decades ago. They have been created with the technology that was available, at that time, and they have been drafted by large organization that don't really focus on one specific or one simple tool like this. I think at some point they will, but right now they run large guideline for a lot of different specialties, and so sometimes it's not. And I'm not talking about lipoproteinuric A per se, right? I'm talking in general. So I think what's going to happen in what's happening right now is doctors are now taking the initiative, right, to say, okay, this is what I know, this is what I recommend. Therefore, if you believe in it and if you trust me as a patient, this is what you should do, without necessarily applying the national guideline of a medical society, right? And I'm not going against it, but I think it's about the decision of the doctor in discussion with the patient, and that's why it is important to have a patient that is well educated, right? I think smarter about their health, and getting the information from trusted sources, reading from trusting sources, and understanding, the what they're talking about when they go to the doctor, so they don't get fooled around. So just to say a few words about cardiovascular testing, I think in the future we'll be able to go to any daily shop, right? Barber, CVS, or drugstore, and just ask for a short panel, right? A small panel of few biomarkers that will give us a risk factor, and few things that we can do to optimize it. We could do that several times a year. It will be really cheap. It will be, the friction will be really low. You wouldn't have to connect with your insurance. It will be almost seamless, point of care. All the data will come into your phone, and you will understand what to do in the next few months to improve it in real time. I think even in the next decade, we're going to have some, multi-omics, like I said, multi-omics, biomarker monitoring, like continuous glucose monitor for different type of biomarker, understanding in real time, what's happening in your body, the same way we do it with glucose monitoring. So it's a lot of evolution what's going to happen, that will happen in the next few years, and those evolution will be a great way to bring more, you know a better access, right, to those type of technology, not only for the most fortunate but for everyone.
Is there a reason for um, could we remove the longevity part of a longevity physician and just call it preventative medicine or precision medicine? Or the reason I ask is because I know that there's been some pushback against using the term longevity physician or longevity doc, because there are no approved treatments for aging per se, right? So I think it's important to establish, if someone's listening to this and don't know much about the field, they might get the wrong idea that we're talking about something like what Brian Johnson says, that he's going to not die, and so on. And I would say that it's perfectly clear that if the status quo remains, we're all going to die, and we're not going to live radically longer, right? So I guess that what we're doing now and what you're trying to do is to make sure that as many people as possible are taking the chance to live as healthy as possible for as long as possible, but they're not going to expect to live for 120 years, right?
Yeah, I think it's, you always have bold claims, whether it's you want to be sensational, you want to have more clicks or like on the post, or I don't think I'm interested in this conversation, right? Uh, we don't call them immortality doctors, right? For some reason. So I think the most doctors, and I would say 100% of most of our doctors, are really aware of the mission is really to prolong an healthy life. And so I don't think anyone can predict how long you're going to live, right? So far. So like whoever says they can, or whoever is doing it, they're doing it against the common sense. All right. And so you know people have a freedom of speech and they can say whatever they want. I think that doesn't make them a doctor. And so if you want to take your prescription from anyone else, great for you. I mean, you can fly a plane with an apprentice pilot, and I have nothing to say about it. I think we are just again, I think, good doctors trying to improve longevity for humanity, not for one certain group of people. And it starts somewhere, and we have to continue our fight and mission. So I'm not a branding expert, so whatever you think is good to call a new doctor, a new medicine, feel free to do it. Same for every other entrepreneur in the space. I just believe that the ultimate goal is longevity for humanity. I think it is important to have first principle. Why do we want to live longer? That's the question. Everyone should take a minute, right, to really think, why do you want to live longer? And I'll tell you my reason. I want to increase the chance of having happier moment for longer. For me, this is the ultimate longevity. Because if you live longer, if you are healthier, and if you have an amazing community, if your family live longer, if your friends live longer, if you can travel and experience, all the beauty of this world, you create, I mean, first of all, happiness is within you, but you create memorable experience, right? And that's what life is all about. So I think the branding doesn't mean anything to me. It's the
Yeah.
purpose that is important.
Yeah, I think when I think about this, and I've written about this, this is a century of biology and artificial intelligence, right? There's going to be an acceleration both in synthetic biology, in AI, in aging biology, what we learn about how aging works, and so on. How I think about it is that, sure, I mean, both Patrick and I agree that we want to increase the chances of getting happy moments. And we want to live as long as it's possible. And I think that right now we could probably set some kind of limit to how long we would live if nothing happens from now on, right? Science just stops. But it's not going to stop. And there was this Swedish guy, and he was in his 40s, I believe, and this was probably in the 1950s. And so he had heart issues, not sure exactly what, but he didn't have that long to live. But he was in a trial trying out a new technology called a pacemaker. And so he lived for another 50 years. He lived to see the new millennium. And so I think about, it's a good thing to try to take care of your health today and tomorrow, because you never know what might show up. You might need those 5, 10, 15 extra years down the road, right? Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think you know what, I don't understand why it should be a debate. It's like that. That's where it's like sometimes we try to create debate on things that are like, what is the opposite of living longer? Is dying prematurely. Like, who wants to pick the later? Right? Is unless you are unhappy in your life. And that's where I think it is like the common denominator. If you understand that you're going to have a fulfilled, impactful, and happy life for longer, why you should not sign for it, right? And I think maybe a question without answer is, will immortality make you happy? When you know that you have infinite time, infinite access, infinite solution, would you be happy? Would you be fulfilled? Would you be excited to live anymore?
Yeah, I think there though is a nuance to that. I mean, I don't think some people do talk about immortality. I think me and Patrick, we don't talk so much about immortality. We just say, look, it's great to be alive, and let's try to stay alive for as long as possible. But that's to go from there to immortality. That's quite a long time, right? And yeah, Patrick, do you want to chip? You, Patrick is the philosopher.
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah, I mean, about the last thing you said, I remember, I think it was Woody Allen who said that eternity is a long time, especially towards the end.
You see, that was beautifully said. I think it's you have to understand. Look, I love to have a longevity roadmap, right? Everyone has a business plan, a strategy for whatever they do, like investment, building companies, career, etc. But what is your longevity roadmap? What is your longevity strategy? Do you have a plan for it? Right? And so if you really target and if you look, I want to live to 90 or 100 or whatever numbers you want to put. Why do you want that? Is that an ego trip? Do you want to brag with your friend at the cafe when you're 90 that you just so I think it's what's the plan? What's your roadmap? And I know Peter Acha is talking about the centurion
Decathlon.
triathlon, decathlon. So that's part of it, right? But what is the other plan? And so if you have that, how can you reverse engineer it, right? And how long you want to have to enjoy this plan, right? And so I think that's an easy way to say, yeah, that's going to be um, a finite roadmap. There is an outcome, but how long you want the game to be played, right? And so once you have that, then you put all the card on your side and say, this is how I want to play it, right? And so the longevity game can be long or short, depends of the resources, the asset, the knowledge you have of the game.
Um, yeah. So if we go to the present time today, we have different types of interventions that some people make use of. For example, rapamycin and metformin. What is the view for longevity docs, if there's a way to summarize it, regarding those two compounds?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm not a spokesperson of longevity docs. I think it's everyone has a point of view that is probably different, right? In either granular way. Um, what is really interesting is the mindset about it. Is every single doctor that I talk to are focusing on personalizing the intervention, right? And in a gradual way. I think you know those two molecules could be interesting. There's more, even more interesting ones sometimes that we don't talk about. um, and I think it's because of the media coverage, right? There's the discussion. So I think let's say GLP-1 is an interesting one. that we discuss a lot. Why? Because GLP-1, uh, I think you have receptors all over the body, like CGLT2, right? Receptors. Once you have those inhibitors, then you can produce some, great outcomes. Um, and you have as well different type of intervention that are mainly, I think, the cover 90% of this kind of longevity game. So I think, without just getting into like which drug is better, do you take it, yes or no? I mean, look, I went to a conference, and after I was talking, there was a guy who came. I think he was in his 20s. He said, "Are you on rapamycin?" And I think it looks like, you have to be on this, right? Because that's the magic pill. And so that's a message I don't want to give, right? I don't think there is a magic pill. I think I always see things as a system. What is your longevity ecosystem, right? Do you need this type of drugs? And if you didn't achieve the level 1 of the game, right, there's no way you can go to level 2, right? And that's how I feel about it, right? And so, yes, there's a lot of different intervention, uh, but sometimes there are level 3, level 4 intervention, right? And I think that is really a deeper conversation. Is it is it is it good for you as an individual because the assessment has been done precisely, right? Understanding what other, your medical history, understanding your lifestyle, understanding how can you support the drugs, right? Because obviously there is side effect, right? And talking about the cost effectiveness, I think those two molecules have been studied a lot because they are cheap. However, yeah, as you may know, there is a clinical trial that was, it was much more expensive to produce the placebo than
Right.
the drug itself, right? And so I think that's where it becomes interesting. Is, yes, you have pills right now that are being shown safe, have been on the market forever, and are repurposed in a way. So I think there's a great future for that. But before going there, I think there's so much more that can be done. So that's how, that's my answer regarding those. I think we're gonna have to do more research at larger scale and looking at different type of biomarkers. And obviously we understand the mechanism of action, um, but I'm not convinced there is a magic pill yet.
And
Maybe
level
there is a
one,
combination. Sorry.
yeah, and level one is that sleep, diet, exercise.
Yeah, I think that's those are the intervention. Yes, but I think I would say the diagnostic is really important, right? Knowing where you are, right, to upgrade the car, right, is really important. So do you drive a SUV or do you drive a Formula One, right? And so depending on the type of car you drive, the testing, right, the precision is different. The type of fuel you put in is different, right? The tires you use, etc. So I always take this comparison because this is how I think. I think you have to understand what type of engine you want to use, right, and for what purposes. And so if you're, like a CEO running 20 companies and you're flying every single day, and then you have a high demanding, highly stressed for life, then you should function as a Formula One, right? You should have everything under control. You should monitor everything you can because you don't want the engine to blow up, right? You want to make sure that what you put in your engine is perfectly adapted, right? To uh, a fighter jet, right? And so I think it's totally different when you are driving a school bus, right? And the school bus is, the dad and or the mom who's taking care of the family, and they have to make sure that everything functions perfectly because they have to take care of they are the guardian of the family. And so it's a different approach, but at the end of the day, it's just about understanding who you are and who is your trusted circle in terms of improving your longevity, right? You have to have a team. Why? Because a lot of people think they can do everything by themselves, right? And so when you're smart, you have a tendency to believe that you can be smart on everything, and sometimes it's not the case. So I think if you have if you have a team that can look after you, give you the recommendation, so you can be empowered, yes, but you have as well the guidance of people that have been studying for a long time. I think it is really interesting now to have this combination, right? A trusted guide, and that could be a doctor, that could be a longevity docs, and a community around you, your family, your partner, your kids, that can keep you as well. I would say uh, in check, because most of the time you can have the pill. If you don't take it, right, you can have the recommendation. If you don't do it, that this is the problem. So at the end of the day, I would say, is your compliance 100%, right? And if not, then you have to find ways to improve the compliance. And that's why a lot of people go to the pill, because it is easier than running 10K every day. It is easier than controlling your food intake,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's easier than stopping drinking, smoking, and then sleeping 7 hours. And so I think that's why you get faster to the quick fix, to the solution. That's why everyone is excited about the magic pill that we replace, exercise. Maybe it will at the muscular level, but maybe it won't replace, the BDNF, right? The factor that you create that improve your brain ability to function. It wouldn't give you a personal time to meditate, to think about things, uh, instead of being distracted by an email alert or your phone or your social network. And those are the things that every time you make a decision, you just replace something by another intervention. Why are we doing that? Without the guidance, it's hard because you think you have the solution, or sometimes you don't even think about it. So that's why I encourage a lot of people to really get this longevity game and roadmap, understand what are the different steps. Are you doing everything correctly at level one, which is good nutrition, avoiding stupid accident, right? Because that happens. Look at the skateboard stuff, right? Stupid accident, preventing the cardiovascular disease, cancer, dementia, diabetes, to make sure that you have proper nutrition, all right, and you exercise and move your body. I mean, all those really fundamental and foundational things. Then the step two is, can you go deeper? Do you have enough of the macro and the micronutrients that you need to function and to power the cells, right? Do you go deeper and trying to understand at which level the disease evolves right now, right? Instead of waiting for it, can you go in a more precise way? Do you have intervention that you could use today to improve this level two? Right? And so that probably requires a little bit more guidance, professional guidance from providers. And then you have level three, level four that are using different type of senolytic drugs, repurposed drugs. Um, Sometimes peptide, even stem cell. There's a lot of discussion around that. Probably needs a lot more research as well to bring that to the larger population. But those are, I think, the levels, and there's several people defining those levels. Sometimes there is 3, sometimes there is 10. I think it doesn't matter. What matters for an individual is really understanding that that's a journey, right? And so you have to go step by step. We just at the infancy of this type of medicine. We may be like 5 years old. So, right, we have to be cautious. We don't want to run too fast, but still we want to keep learning. And I think is the kindergarten of longevity medicine right now.
Yeah. How do you view risk reward? That's something that Peter Attia talks a lot about. That sometimes we might not have the the causality, for example, or a study has not been repeated, but there, as a physician, you could be pretty sure that the risk reward ratio is kind of good. And I know that this is something that at least Peter Attia mentions that sets him apart from maybe other physicians, that he's more willing to look at this risk reward. How do you feel about that?
Look, I think it's like everything. There's a scale, right? You have the risk, you have the reward is a balance. Some people are more on the reward and they want to avoid every risk. Some people are like super risky because they want more reward. I think I have no judgment. I think again it should be personalized for the patient, right? And so yes, you are as a physician, you have to adapt and you have to understand what is the demand and what is the need for the patient today. Do you need to offer a lot of risk for a small reward, right? How do you advise that? It is hard, right? I think yeah, you have to offer a high reward, low risk, right? But some people are just asking for lower reward, high risk because they heard about something. So those are, if you're the guardian of medicine as a physician, you have to explain to them. You have to demonstrate. So I totally agree with them where, you have to understand the benefit risk, right? However, I think it's not because there is no double blind control randomized clinical trial. There is no evidence, right? And so I think that's what we're doing right now with Longevity Doc Institute is to create patient registry with real world evidence, with different type of practice, decentralized with different doctors across the country. And I think that is pretty powerful because at some point now you get the evidence. There are evidence coming from actual people, right? Not from the research in hospital setting, with controlled, dosage and nurses, providing the pill at a certain time. I think it's just the real life, and that's what happened. We're not a subject in a research institute or in a lab. We are just an individual living normally and having other compliance issue, and external factor influencing the outcome. And so I agree that we need more research, but what type of research, right? Do you want to be compared as a perfect individual, or do you want to compare to who you actually are? And so uh, I think the future is going to be not only understanding the science and the research, like great physician like Peter Attia, but as well understanding that there's thousands of other physicians that are willing to focus on balancing the reward and the risk, but doing that with proven evidence and research that they're running. So one of my mission is to really empower each physician to become their own, researcher, and to launch, physician powered research where now you can actually publish your data, right? And so if you say, I want to take the risk for my population, right, my patient, you have to demonstrate that the risk are worth it, right? That you
Yeah.
can actually improve outcome. And so it's not about, causality, or it's just about outcome, right? So I want to see the outcome. I want to publish my outcome. I want to make sure that I am, the best in the country, the best in the world, providing the best care for my patient. And so if you think like this as a doctor, then it becomes really simple, right? You are here for the outcome. You are here for the value that you bring to your patient, but you have to demonstrate it. You don't have to do just guesswork, And so the only way to do that is today data and publishing the data.
And you're trying to establish your own blue zone. No, I don't know if we should call it that, but I read in a local outlet that you live in Sag Harbor now. That's on Long Island, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, look, I spent 4 years in Sag Harbor during the pandemic. It was one of the best thing that happened to our family, my son Moana and I, and actually I truly believe that's a blue zone. Why? Because I think the community is amazing, right? The people around us, supporting each other, checking on each other, being aligned on the mission of being, good human beings, supporting, not only the community but the neighbor and the local activities. It's just amazing. So I felt like not only the community but the climate, being close to the water, being in nature, I was really fortunate and privileged to be there, to be to be honest. But I witnessed something that was pretty special, and so I truly believe that it could be a place where people live, happier, longer, healthier. Um, I'm not trying to establish any blue zone. I think the community is doing that by themselves. So I think I truly see that could be something related to a place where people are happy to live together in a great community and are focusing on the well-being and on their health. Yes, totally believe in it. But I think there's a lot of places like this, right? Not only in America, but in the world, where it's all about the community and the right environment. And so, what makes those places great places to live longer is probably the environment, the safety, the cost of living. Obviously, this is not the case in Sag Harbor, but the great education, and I think as well great political support to have an infrastructure that can being at service of the population, right? Access to great water, electricity, connectivity for education, but as well food safety. I think it is important to have let's say farm to table food right now is just a luxury, right? It is really hard to get non-imported food or processed food. So, um, besides just looking at the biomarker, I think understanding how a community can live healthier longer is not only about your health, right? It's about financial stability, food desert, and education, safety, right, and security. I think it is much more than just we claim to um, we claim as scientists and physician, right? We find the magic pill. I think the magic pill is a society, right? And look in America, right? The life expectancy is super low, and that's number one nation on earth, right? Why is it super low? Because of all those reasons. So can we create micro zones where we live healthy, and we support each other and we live happy? That's the beauty of a longevity zone. Yeah.
Hmm. What excites you the most about the future?
The I think experience, right? When you look at the future, is how many crazy experience can you witness, right? And so look at 44, I didn't see the phone, right? We are the generation that we don't know about, mobile phone. We don't know about the internet. We don't know about AI. We don't know about longevity, right? Um, I think it is really exciting to see that all those evolution just happen in a short period of time. So I don't have any prediction, but I think I wanna accelerate the pace at which I can live extraordinary experience, right? Uh, I wanna I wanna stack the number of moments I'm happy, and I wanna create as many human connection as possible, because I know that the more technology advance, right, the more we're gonna reduce human interaction. And so, as much as I'm excited for the velocity of technology development, I am excited to preserve those human moments that I think are starting to disappear. And the more we can connect in real life, the more we're gonna have extraordinary experience that we cannot replicate. And so that's what I'm excited about, because I see now how precious life is and how we should cherish, humanity interaction, because evolution is really fast. So that's a big wake up call for me. Working longevity is why are we doing all of this?
Yeah, beautiful. And how do you see longevity docs evolving from here on out?
Look, I never had a business model for it, so I think it is just solving the daily challenge for doctors, right, and giving them a voice, a platform, and the power to become more independent, to challenge the status quo so we can impact lives at scale. And so if we could do that, it means that there is no limit to the ecosystem. And I see that as a, more artistically, as a creation where it's just you evolve, and you adapt. And so it is really different than building a company that you're targeting one simple uh, solution and problem, and then you're building something. I think it is so much more than that. It's really a movement. So I don't even see it. I think it will evolve. It is so much bigger than just me or the current doctor. It will evolve at this pace, and it has no limit in a way, right? It's just an ecosystem, and it will be decentralized, it will be global, and it will be powering doctors. And so doctors will have more autonomy, more powers to practice just good medicine.
David, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. I have often said that my favorite physician is the one where I go to the physician and I say that, hey, I'm here, I'm healthy. How do you want to help me stay healthy? And I think that's what you're doing at Longevity Docs, trying to actually spread that knowledge, and it's extremely important, that mission. And I know that when I wrote the book, I actually had a hard time because one of the things I did when I wrote my longevity book was that I had to also change my life and my lifestyle. And I know that I had a hard time actually finding a physician that understood who am I going to talk to about longevity. Now there's actually this Longevity Docs International group, and they would know immediately what I was referring to. So yeah, again, thank you so much for talking to us today and taking the time. I know you're very busy.
Oh, thank you, Peter. Thank you, Patrick. Really honored to be on your show, and hopefully, we can meet really soon.
So that there will be links in the description, but just briefly, how can people learn more about your work and the initiatives?
I mean, longevitydocs.org. Can go on on the website. Obviously, we have social media as well. My website, drdavidlu.com, and I'm always available on social media as well.
Thank you very much, and thanks for your great work.
Thank you.